Hi, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live discussion. Today, we will be sharing hiring and retention trends in the contact centers and strategies to improve them. I am Brandie Gatlin, and I lead the training and development practice at the Northridge Group. We help our clients navigate challenges in their contact centers while maintaining their focus on the customer experience. I'm pleased to be joined today by two of my colleagues who are also passionate about the contact centers, workforce management, and the customer experience. First, I'd like to introduce Tina Suthers, who is the Senior Director of Workforce Management and Contact Center at the Northridge Group. We are also joined by Andrea Christian, Senior Consultant of the Workforce Management and Contact Center at the Northridge Group. Welcome to the discussion, Tina and Andrea.
Hi, great to be here.
Today's discussion will focus on a host of hiring and retention challenges that are currently facing contact centers. We will discuss what's important to employees now and what employers can do to retain good employees and recruit high potential candidates in today's pandemic environment. Please note that we encourage you to utilize the comment feature to post your questions. We will respond to all questions in writing after the session and will post the completed Q&A document within a day or so on the event page. Let's go ahead and get started. So Andrea, could you please give us an overview of the current labor market and the hiring and retention challenges that contact center employers are currently facing?
Absolutely. So in today's marketplace, one thing that we're seeing is that workers are not returning to work at the rate in which they left. And this is really due to several reasons. So we do see a lot of people are taking the opportunity to change industries, something they maybe haven't considered before. Or they're taking this time in between roles to try something new. There have been an increase in new entrepreneurs as well as self-employment ventures. So it definitely seems like a lot of frontline workers are considering other opportunities like that. In addition, the time off of work has led to a reevaluation of work-life balance priorities. So is this time away from my family something I'm willing to continue to do? Or am I putting my health at risk by going back to this role when I could look for something that's less risky? These are questions that workers are facing today. And on top of all this, I think really the status quo of what's acceptable for pay and other benefits has been completely upended by the pandemic. So what may have been fine for a starting rate, a year and a half ago is not necessarily acceptable now. What we have seen in contact centers specifically is that starting pay really hasn't kept pace with minimum wage increases. And some companies are choosing to address that for starting pay for new hires only. And this has led to some salary compression issues. We'd also be remiss if we didn't mention that, COVID forced a lot of migration to work from home, particularly in the contact center, and it proved fairly successful. So this is something that's going to have to be part of the future discussion. And then, that also opens up the door for changes in hiring demand. There's a demand across all industries. We're fighting for the same workers. And the competition isn't necessarily just local anymore. Now with work from home, you could be, fighting for a worker that someone in another state is also fighting for. So thinking about, the general labor market, the pandemic has really impacted it differently than a traditional recession, because in a recession, you usually see fewer jobs and too many workers. But, during the pandemic, there's things that have impacted the labor supply, health concerns, family demands, government policies, all of those play roles in who can work and when. And, the industries that we've seen most impacted by the unemployment benefits are those in that $12 per hour pay range, which is where a lot of contact centers have had their starting pay at for many years.
Thanks, Andrea. Are Northridge Group clients and contacts observing similar trends in their own contact centers?
Absolutely. We actually polled our clients and some contacts to assess what changes they've seen since COVID began. And we're seeing pretty consistent trends across many industries and contact centers. So whether it's healthcare, banking, most are reporting higher attrition and lower recruiting success. And just to give you kind of an idea of, how different these are, from an attrition perspective, before COVID, most of our clients and contacts were reporting more of that 43% annualized attrition range, and then now it's more like 63%. And then on the flip side, to recruit new hire classes, they used to see more of an 88% class fill rate, and now they're seeing closer to 58%. So not only is it harder to, keep the people that you have, it's also harder to backfill them.
Thanks, Andrea. Tina, I'm going to turn to you for a second. What does the workforce look like in a typical contact center, and how are the skill sets for an agent changing?
Yeah, so on average, the demographics within a typical contact center look something like this. Majority of the agents are women. Average age is just under 40. Employees typically have a high school education or another form of a degree, with a good portion still coming in with bachelor's degrees. In the first year, we usually lose about 47% of the agents that are hired. And with current trends, we're seeing that first year, that percentage increase with what we're seeing in the current marketplace. The contact center itself, right, continues to evolve with all of the expansion of automation and technology solutions. Calls that used to be handled by an agent are migrating to self-service, leaving those more complex contacts for your agents to resolve. Self-service today, right, comes in a wide variety of different options, anything from a bot to your website or app to a conversational AI IVR. So in addition to that, we also have more channels for your customers and members to contact your organization. It's not just phone calls. We have seen increases ongoing in chat and text and other digital channels that your agents need to support. And with the increase in complexity of the work, the skill of the contact center agent is going to need to continue to increase.
Thanks, Tina. We've already discussed that compensation levels are affecting contact centers in today's market. With the added component of increased complexity in a contact center agent's work, what recommendations do you have for compensating new hires and existing employees?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about starting wages and current trends. So first, I'm going to hit on something Andrea mentioned early on in regard to minimum wage. So the last federal minimum wage rate increase was over a decade ago. But what we're seeing is many states, counties, cities have been increasing their rate independently. In fact, in 2021 alone, there's 20 states that are raising their minimum wage. Contact centers haven't always increased their starting pay at the same rate that the minimum wage is adjusting. In addition to that, though, there's also entry-level industries like fast food and retail and entertainment that are making more significant wage adjustments to combat this tough labor market. And this has really changed where contact centers are placed in the spectrum of wages. There's also competition that's emerging with all of the online shopping. We're seeing things like warehouses showing up locally where you haven't had them in the past. And in this new virtual world, the new competition isn't just down the street anymore. They are entirely, in a different part of the country, which is creating new opportunities for your employees to work remotely. So with the new competition and wage pressures coupled with the contact center tasks becoming more complex, compensation in total is going to need to reflect a higher skilled employee with strong problem solving skills, strong customer service, customer experience skills, and increasing analytical skills. Some options that are being used across the industry include things like starting rate increases or revamping the new hire program to not overwhelm employees when they get started, but allow them some time to master some of what they learned and then continuing to add on. And we're also seeing some expansion of that nesting phase to, again, make sure that the new employees are feeling very supported as they go through the onboarding cycle. There's obviously also salary adjustments that are happening, everything from sign-on bonuses to pay performance to spot bonuses, progressive pay increases, and a increasing amount of progressive increases as people move through their career pathing. few things to think about though when you're thinking about compensation is it's not just about salary, it's about your entire offering. Think of the whole total package of your corporate benefits, your paid time off, scheduling flexibility, developmental and kind of learning opportunities. And the last comment that I'd make is if you're making an adjustment to start pay for your new hires, it's really important to think about your existing employees so that you're not creating salary compression issues or morale issues.
What are some of the emerging trends you're seeing in terms of company benefits?
Yeah, I think some of the newer things that are definitely showing up is full medical coverage. Paying 100% of medical benefits is something we're hearing more and more about. Also increasing the tuition reimbursement that your company is offering. And finally, the other newer trend I'd highlight is unlimited vacation.
Great, thanks, Tina. Andrea, there's been a lot of discussion around work from home. From your perspective, do you think work from home is here to stay for contact centers? And what do you think companies should consider if they start to think about returning to office once it's feasible again?
So work from home is definitely here to stay for contact centers. I think there's a lot of things that companies should consider when they're trying to figure out, where do we go from here? First and foremost, I think, we should resist the urge to just go back to whatever our policy was before the pandemic started. So if you didn't have a work from home policy before, thinking that, we'll just go 100% back to the office like nothing ever happened would be a real disservice. Instead, take this time and really consider what the policy should be going forward. Some companies are going to choose to go back 100% into the office. Others are going to choose to stay 100% virtual, and there's a whole lot of ground in between. So remember, it's not all or nothing. There are certainly hybrid approaches, whether you allow certain people that meet certain criteria to work from home, or, perhaps it's only working from home a certain number of days per week. Or maintaining smaller offices for engagement activities only. There's a lot of different ways that you can approach a work from home policy. But it's important to make sure that you're creating a work from home program that is going to keep you competitive in the market, because remember that contact center workers have a lot of choices, and they're going to have a lot more choices in the future with companies that do have work from home programs. So if you are going to go back to having contact center agents in the office, I would also consider giving the agents a choice based on their success while they were working remotely during COVID. For the ones that were performing well and staying engaged, perhaps they should have the choice to stay working remotely. And then you bring on the people that did not meet that criteria and figure out, what are going to be your technical tenure and performance requirements to qualify for working remotely. It's also a good time to take a look at your new hire programs and make sure that they also fit in with a work from home program and that they remain digital and engaging for agents, from the beginning all the way through to when they potentially qualify for working from home. Regardless of what program you choose, I think communication is really the key. There's a lot of value in gaining insights from the people that do this job every day. So, get creative and remain nimble with their feedback and reinforce how and where you're using their feedback to drive improvements. Another thing to remember is that, work from home opens up a lot of additional opportunities. It's not just something that, you now need to include as part of your employment package, but, it also could help solve some problems. The labor market is going to have a lot of choices when it comes to jobs with remote workers. So, being competitive is one side of the coin, but on the other side, you may be able to tap into work for populations that have historically had difficulty working an 8-hour schedule 5 days a week on site, such as, a college student or a caregiver. One of the hardest staffing problems to solve in contact centers is always, how do you meet peak demands? Work from home really might provide the flexibility that's needed to do that. I mean, imagine being able to tap into a workforce that can hop on the phones from 9 a.m. to noon, help with that peak morning volume, cover some lunch breaks. I mean, this type of work from home schedule might be really perfect for, say, a stay-at-home parent while their kids are at school. So, I think companies should definitely consider these as additional benefits when weighing or designing a work from home program.
And Andrea, I know we recently had a client ask for ideas on recruiting, new recruiting markets. Given the opportunities that work from home facilitates, what suggestions would you have for the group?
That's a really great question. One thing that I'd recommend first and foremost is look at employees that have previously left the company, perhaps before virtual was an option, because of, they needed specific schedule flexibility or they couldn't make the commute anymore. Those types of reasons are pretty common for losing good workers, unfortunately. And if you had a rock star, who was just great at their job, but unfortunately, couldn't make the commute anymore, reaching back out to them to say, hey, now we have a remote worker program might really be a win-win for both, the former employee as well as the company. So I think that is definitely an area I would tap first. And then really think about new populations within the workforce that typically, value schedule flexibility. Some options might be thinking about, veterans or, legally blind or disabled, students, retirees. We already mentioned, stay-at-home parents or caregivers, as well as seasonal workers. These are all populations, like, again, that value schedule flexibility, but that might really benefit from a work from home program that, if newly implemented, now opens the door to additional candidates. So, really think about options that you might now have for part-time schedules or reduced full-time schedules, because, that really is a large part of the population that may be interested, especially when, everybody's fighting for the same workers right now. I would also recommend, particularly when it comes to students, if you can partner with colleges or universities to provide students work while they're in school, and then also a job once they graduate, depending on the field, there could be, a whole population there that may be interested in some work while they're going through school. And certainly never underestimate the power of employee referrals. Those companies that have employee referral programs, they're generally very popular with employees and are often a great resource for new candidates. So these are just a few ideas. I mean, I think that the main thing is to remain vigilant and continue to look at creative new markets.
Thanks, Andrea. So Tina, I'm going to turn back to you for just a moment. How would you summarize the best practices employers should adopt to achieve their retention and hiring goals?
Yeah, so given how tough the labor market is, as you can expect, there's a lot of conversation about hiring successes and challenges. And what I would say is now more than ever, the first focus should be on protecting and retaining your existing staff. With the high cost to replace employees and the learning curve that comes with new employees, retaining your existing performing agents is certainly more important than ever. One way to accomplish this would be taking a step back and really evaluating your company culture. Employees today are looking for a company that values their contributions, including engaging them on solutioning of issues that affect the contact center and affect the employees. They want to work for companies that provide flexibility and support their growth, and work-life balance is also a priority. I think with the more virtual remote worlds, work-life balance has been more of a challenge. And so the company's commitment to work-life balance and living by example, I think, are really important. Of course, you should also still be continuing to evaluate your recruiting strategy, constantly assessing your strategy to align with your successes, but also targeting some of those creative new markets that Andrea highlighted. Ensure that you have a selection strategy that includes robust screening, including both cognitive and fit for the role assessments, and that your interview process is behavior-based to confirm that your applicants really have the skills and experiences you need for them to support your customers. I think success metrics along that recruiting strategy and speed are really critical components to the recruiting strategy in today's day. As you're thinking about training, it's important to refine your training approach to ensure that the content is digital and highly interactive, whether that be for hybrid, on-site, or fully remote training. And keep in mind, as you're developing and enhancing your training program, the workforce of the future. that we spoke about earlier, it's important that the training program evolves and keeps pace with what's happening in your contact center so that you can evolve to the workers of the future. And then the last thing I would say kind of on this piece is contact centers have not stabilized. This is going to be a continued evaluation where you have to continue looking at what's working, what's not working, and getting some feedback from some of your most valuable resources, which is your people, as well as looking at what's going on kind of inside the competitive landscape so that you stay fresh with what's going on from a competition perspective. So, we're asked frequently, what can employers do and what can they focus on? And I think the first piece that I'd highlight is consider the value that employees place on flexibility in the workplace. And it's not just where they work, but when they work. This can be anything from choosing their hours to creative scheduling like split shift or part-time. We're definitely seeing more split shift schedules than we've ever seen when the employees were physically in the office. Consider things like allowing your high-performing employees to pick their own schedule. You might be, one, pleasantly surprised with what they come up with, but secondly, you create a new level of connection and loyalty with those employees because they got to pick a schedule that worked for them personally. Inside the contact center, we measure everything. And one trend we're currently seeing is that more and more companies are providing flexibility on productivity metrics, knowing it will save them in the long run to give a little bit more for shrinkage and offset attrition. As you think about remote workforce, as Andrea shared, consider allowing employees' preferences about returning to the office. Some people very much want to come back in the office, where some people, they've been doing this for a while and it's really where they want to stay. So consider the adjustments that you can make from a remote workforce perspective and the possibility that you have for recruiting as you remove that location requirement, if it's feasible within your organization. If it's not possible that you go to more of a remote workforce, potentially look at other flexibility that you can provide, such as if they're caring for a sick child or had some recent exposure, allow them the opportunity to work remotely in those types of situations instead of requiring them to take vacation or time unpaid. Get creative, assessing opportunities for creative solutions on recruitment barriers and retaining high performers, and talking to your employees to get some creative ideas directly from them, both the people that are leaving, so in some of your exit interviews, but also the people are staying. Understand why they're staying, what's important to them, what they're valuing in terms of the offering that you have. And then I know I spoke about company culture, but today's workforce is increasingly concerned with the company that they work for and feeling valued for the community in which they operate. So being transparent in your communication styles and seeking input from them on what's working and not working, and creating channels for them to share information. I was talking to one of my colleagues last week, and one of the things that they shared is they're setting up something called engagement groups. So think of an example like working parents. The engagement groups may meet once a month, maybe once every other month, and talk about the challenges that they're having kind of inside of that unique group of employees, and talking about what support, what things that they've been able to do to solve for some of the challenges. Inside their company, they have a leadership person that attends, considers what they heard, and incorporates improvement how and where they can. It, again, just shows that commitment to the employees and that you're listening to what they're sharing. Even if you can't implement everything, you're listening and making adjustments where you can. Another tip that we'd highlight from a company culture perspective is establishing a connection with your employee on day one. They don't yet have loyalty to your company, and we continue to see with everything that's going on from a competition perspective, we continue to see high new hire training inside or right outside of training. So start connecting with them early. And it's not just the trainer, the connection to the trainer, but ensuring they know who their supervisor is and who they're going to be working with so that they can start building that rapport right away. And then the last piece that I'd highlight is, looking at added perks and benefits such as increased time off. Some organizations are doing child stipends or providing, bandwidth support and funding, not only to attract new talent, but again, doing everything you can to protect your existing staff.
Thanks, Tina and Andrea. So based on our discussion today, there are some key takeaways for improving retention and recruitment in today's environment. First, create a place where people feel valued is always worth the effort. Be purposeful and create an environment to listen and engage in discussions with your employees and their leaders, and be transparent in your communication. Flexibility and career pathing should always be key areas of focus in today's environment. Reviewing your recruitment and training programs to get the right level of skills in the door. Take a look at your overall compensation program and align with the marketplace trends. And most importantly, the pandemic has presented unprecedented challenges for the modern business age, so always take time to celebrate your success. This concludes our LinkedIn Live discussion today, and we appreciate you joining us. We encourage you to contact the Northridge Group if you have any further questions or if we can be of assistance to you. If you'd like to learn more about the extensive services we offer, please visit our website and follow us on our social media channels, such as Twitter, Facebook, and of course, LinkedIn. As mentioned earlier, we will be responding to all questions and posting the written responses within the next couple of days, so please be sure to check back soon. Also, we value your feedback, so please feel free to leave a comment on what you've enjoyed about today's session or any suggestions for next time, as we hope to see you back again for our next event. We hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.